Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. If any of you are looking at the video, this fake background is supposed to be a craft room. And I wish my craft room looked like that the ceiling was all glass. That would be nice. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about step two. Um, and what I was planning on doing was doing each step each month. So like step two in February, but sorry, I gotta yawn. Ah. Um, but I think I'm just gonna do it as it comes, okay? Agreed. So I wanted to talk about how I think this is important, that believing in God is not a requirement to get sober. And what is a requirement is to believe in something greater than yourself. What's the difference? Um, for me, it is knowing that I do not have control of anything outside of my fingertips. You know, knowing that there, the world's story is not my story. And that's interesting because that's what I thought as a child. As a child, I thought that um, what was happening around me was my world. And I mean, it was my world, but meaning there wasn't anything else happening unless it was happening around me. You know, it's that idea of a child where you feel like um, you're invincible. You don't get it, you know, you don't get, and it's good you don't get it because it would be a lot more difficult to grow up if we understood the vastness of this universe that we belong to. What what has been a problem of mine is that as soon as the world started to come into focus, where I could see that there was a lot more going on than what was right in front of me, I started drinking because I didn't want to deal with the vastness of the world. It freaked me out. And to this day, when I stray away or when I'm scared, when I have a lot of fear, like after my stroke, when I was really fearful about um dying, I I forgot about the world story and was so hyper focused on my own. And I felt like my story was coming to an end. And I don't think that I strayed from believing what I was believing before, you know, in what is my higher power, but what I was believing wasn't enough. When I got to stroke recovery, my faith wasn't strong enough. And I think that's why, as I continue doing this podcast, I talk about it more and more because I need it more and more, and I need to nurture it more and more. Um, when we read step two in the sobriety program, it talks about the dilemma of the faith wanderer, the person who doesn't, you know, goes back and forth. I mean, there are so many people that I have heard from in sobriety who have different experiences from one end of the spectrum to the other in faith. From having a childhood that was centered on faith, and then it just broke down and fell apart as they got older, to the opposite, having zero focus on faith. And as they entered into the program, they were um, atheist or agnostic. And yet, as they continued to work the steps, that faith grew. Um, I have run across people who have had such heartbreaking experiences in their life that any faith that they wish they had or that they had um, just fell apart when they thought, well, God wouldn't let this happen to me, or a God wouldn't let this happen to my loved one. There's an individual who lost all faith after September 11th. A God wouldn't, my God, or a God that I would want to believe in, wouldn't let that happen. And and I get it, I get it. And that's where my opinion about other people's faith stops. It's an inside job. It's something that we have to figure out on our own. And that's why we get to say in sobriety, it is the God of my understanding. What I like to call it is a higher power. And the reason why is because I have a hard time. I don't have a hard time saying God as much as I used to. I used to just feel wrong when I would say the word God. It's so hard for me to explain, but I just couldn't even say the word. I mean, I remember in early episodes for this podcast, I would say God, and I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to, it's like a dirty word, I mean, that's terrible. But that's what it felt like. It felt like I shouldn't say it. And I think that is just my experiences in my life, that I was surrounded by people, and I'm not just talking about family, but friends, everyone around me, um, did not encourage faith. That is just what I experienced, and that doesn't mean any of them were wrong, but it is what inhibited me from pursuing anything in that area because I was ashamed of it. Um, there are, it's everybody's choice. And what I needed to do for me was to not talk about it and to just, the only place that I would talk about it was in my sobriety meetings. And even there, I was very uncomfortable. Um, the thing is that the more that I practiced the steps, the more I noticed something else was happening that was greater than me. That's simply put, that's what it was. That the more that I cleaned out what I call my dark place, in sobriety, they call it cleaning house. I call it cleaning out my dark place, like shining the light on what's what I've been stuffing down in there for so long, shining the light on it and feeling the pain, pulling it out of there, and like, okay, like organization, I'm I'm doing a lot of organizing right now in my house. And it's like pulling out this stuff, and you're like, what is that? I was going through my closet and I'm like, what is this? I have no idea what this goes to. That is what it's like cleaning out my dark place. It's like pulling out junk that is like, I don't even know why that's in there. I don't even know why that is impacting me, my emotional well-being. I don't even know where that came from. Why do I feel X about Z? Why do I feel so I mean, a great example is not wanting to say the word God. Why do I feel embarrassed to say the word God? Where did that even come from? And spending time to think about that, where where did it come from, and do I need to continue to hold on to that embarrassment, that shame, or not really shame, but embarrassment about saying the word God? And as I've been practicing, I mean, you guys hopefully have noticed that I've been practicing saying it so that um I'm able to, and I don't feel so uncomfortable. I saw a post from one of my friends on Instagram, and this friend of mine, hi, you'll know who you are after I say this, and if you listen to my podcast. So hi, I love you if you're listening. I saw a post from my friend on Instagram, and this friend I grew up with, and I don't think the word God or religion ever came into our vocabulary during our friendship. We were childhood friends, grew up together, and yet today her posts on Instagram are about, and I'm not just talking about mentioning, God bless or something like this. This is like straight up the other end of the spectrum where it's like pulling biblical verses, and it's a lot. It's a lot for me. For me, I look at it and I'm like, wow, like where does this come from? And like, how do you go from one end, not one end of the spectrum, but not growing up in faith, and then having this such passion about faith that you're quoting the Bible and providing encouragement outwardly, boldly, um, about God. I don't get it. I don't get it. But I used to be kind of like, oh, geez, what happened to her? I only feel comfortable saying this to you, okay? Which is funny because that's the whole internet. Anyway, because you guys know that I'm admittedly been a bitch throughout my life. And so that bitchy part of me, which is just a naive part of me, um, thinks she has gone, she is judgmental. I become judgmental. And that's the part of me that I work on with the steps, because when I saw it yesterday, last night, I thought, good for her, that this is something that has redefined her. And I've I've only recently been able to look at it like that. And it's really wild to me how close-minded I can be. And if I really work at it, I can open up that part of me. And what's there when I open it up is is I feel happy for the person that I had previously judged. Um, I think that's what you may call, I call it bitchiness. Some people call it too smart for your own good. But the sobriety program talks about intellectuals and how science trumps faith. And I go back to I I feel really happy that always had this innate desire to have a relationship with a God of my understanding. I feel happy that it was already there. The willingness was already there. It's always been there. I just didn't talk about it. Um, but it, I didn't understand it. A God of my understanding, a God of not my a God that I don't understand. Whatever. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. A God of not my understanding, something like that. Anyway, I'm talking in circles. I know. Just keep listening. Um, I'm glad that I had that because I was more easily able to see that I play a role in the world and I am not the director. And as a child, when we think that the world around us, only the world around us is the whole world, um, the world revolves around us. We, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Bear with me, please. You guys love me, so just bear with me. Yeah, it's gone. Sorry, stroke. Um, I'm not the director. I play a role in the world. And as a child, I think I'm the director. And today I understand that I play a role. And the only way I could do that was to work the steps. Um, I heard this morning quality of faith is more important than quantity. So I used to judge people who were constantly going to church, constantly. I'm like, well, you don't need to do that. You don't need to go constantly. Why don't you just pray on the inside? Well, I understand more that the more you have it, the more you want it. Um, Somebody said something this morning that I thought was really cool. He said, you need faith in order to see rather than seeing before you have faith. I thought that that was absolutely perfect. From all of my experiences and what I see in other people. The intellectuals, for example, I am not going to believe it until I see it. You know, I'm summarizing, but I'm not going to believe it until I see it. You're not going to see it unless you believe it first. I think that's really cool, and I'm going to think about that a lot today. Um, I don't want to continue to judge people that are faithful because I want to have what they have. No, I don't want to go on Instagram and quote from the Bible, but I just simply don't want to feel embarrassed to talk about it. Um, some people, as we are suggested in sobriety to believe in something greater than ourselves, some people always use the sobriety program as their higher power, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I say You don't have to believe in God to get sober, to stay sober. Because all you have to do is understand that um, you need help. It's at the point where you reach out for help, you're already believing in something greater than yourself, because something greater than yourself is just not you. That's all it is. I used to believe that Vella Box Chardonnay was my higher power. That was the thing that guided me. It was something greater than myself because I couldn't do it on my own. So I put this substance inside of me and it gave me superpowers. It was my higher power. And instead of putting that in me, now what I am working on doing, and I get to work on it for the rest of my life, is put faith inside of me instead of alcohol. And the best way that I can do that is keep practicing, keep trying. If that's what I want, then I shouldn't let anything or any judgment or anything keep me from doing that. It's really sad that that was my experience throughout my life, because that means it was the experience of a lot of other people around me, my friends. Um, but all I can do is really focus on myself and appease or satisfy that craving that I've always had to have a relationship with a God of my understanding. So that's what I have for step two. If I think of anything else, I'll do another episode on it. But I always like to make sure that newcomers understand that you don't have to believe in God to get sober, because I've run across so many people that are like, I'm not, it's a cult. The sobriety program is a cult. Um, and it's not. I mean, it's a group of people trying to stay sober and trying to stay alive. That's what it is. And they are searching for any um good means to do that. And part of that is faith. I know for a fact, I hate saying that phrase, that if I did not have faith, I would not be sober today. I know that for sure because of my experience in San Francisco that you guys have heard about 20 million times. um, so I feel like I'm doing it right. You know, I'm staying sober. I'm working on that faith. I'm trying to nurture that relationship that I have that nobody else needs to really understand. It's just me. So thanks for listening today. I have a big day today. I am going with my sister to see my uncle, which I haven't seen in 20 years. And he lives like a half an hour from my house. I'm really excited about it. And I'm really grateful that we are going to be a part of each other's lives again. So that's what I've got for you. Thanks so much for showing up. Thanks for showing up for yourself. And I will talk to you tomorrow.